you Google Jacob Weinberg, he's all over the internet. He's many, many compositions, some of which are still being performed and recorded today. And my father, Walter, little Walter, loved to play the piano, but he did not become a concert pianist, but he was a very capable player, and he became a professional musician and played at weddings and confirmations and christenings all over the city. He was an expert in Greek music and in Orthodox Jewish music, so he was always going out at night to play. And he taught us, myself and my two sisters, to play the piano. I myself, I'm very amicably divorced, and I have two teenagers, a 16-year-old daughter and a 14-year-old son. And, you know, I thought life was going pretty good with my elderly folks a mile or two away. And we weren't that close, I'm afraid to say. My father was always kind, and he would take my phone calls, but my mother wouldn't always come to the phone. And I'd ask to speak to her, and he'd say, "Mother sends love." And just between you and me, I think if I could have seen what was going on, she was probably in bed going like this. We weren't that close as the years went on. There was, our relationship was one of love and less love. She was a tough person. Both my parents were college educated. My mother went to Hunter College. She was a math major, class of 1943. And she was a strict disciplinarian, and she pushed myself and my two sisters to do very well in school. She was tough. She would always say things like, "My way or the highway." That was her. She didn't make any bones about it. She was tact-free. So I grew up being kind of a people pleaser, and she would always try to correct, and she said, "You know, life is not a popularity contest." And I thought to myself, good, lucky for you, because if it were, you would lose. You would lose big time. So my mother was like the general in the household, and my father was like the lieutenant. That was the way it was. And it reminds me of that old joke, maybe you've heard it. Little boy goes to school, he comes home and goes, Mom, I got a part in the school play. I'm playing the Jewish dad. And the mother says, "You go back there and you tell your teacher you want a speaking part." My dad was funny. He was very funny. When I went to medical school, I remember calling him one day. I was really kind of depressed. I was studying for my radiology final. I just bored and depressed, and I didn't know where my life was going. I said, "I can't study anymore." He said, "Just look at the pictures." And that helped so much. It took all the pressure off. He was kind. Both my parents, they never cursed. They never said any racial slurs. They never farted out loud. They set a very high standard of refinement. A high standard of refinement, which I still struggle to reach. And by the way, I want to mention also, my mother couldn't leave the house to visit my father in the hospital. And I'll give you a little multiple choice as to why this was. A, she had a wooden leg. B, she had a serious crack problem. C, she had agoraphobia. C, yes, she had agoraphobia. So for the last 4 years, she wasn't leaving the house at all, so she could hardly come to the hospital and help us with Dad. The next morning, after I leave my father, my precious father, in the hands of the slow Dr. B, I come in the next morning to see how he's doing. And now the daytime doctor is on, and she's a big Russian, and she goes, "So, Ellen," she goes, what do you want me to do with your father?" And I thought to myself, "You're the doctor too. Here, I'm his daughter. I'm here as his daughter. You're the doctor here, right?" So I go to see him. He's on a stretcher. He's out cold. He's sleeping. He's snoring very deeply. And I notice he's in a hospital gown, of course. It's wet. I thought, why would it be wet? And I see that he's urinated on himself. So I go out and I get the nurse and say, "Come on, we got to change his gown. It's wet." We go to change him, and we sit him up to change the gown. He's not waking up. That is weird. I mean, how can you be sitting upright and not waking up? So I said, well, what did his EKG show? And they said, oh, we didn't do his EKG. He wouldn't let us. He wouldn't let us do anything. I said, well, he's been out cold since 1 a.m. when he got the injection, and now it's 8:30, so why don't we put the EKG leads on him now? I'm creative that way. So we get he's out cold. And we put the EKG leads. His pulse is 24. And you know what an EKG looks like? It's a long sine wave. And the nurse says to me, we got to get him to the intensive care unit right away. So in the stretcher that he's in, we wheel him down the hall, we put him into the intensive care unit, they intubate him, they start breathing for him. He's practically dead. He's admitted to the cardiac care unit. Horrible, horrible mess. And he's angry. And he's finally restored to himself. His heart's unstable. He's had a heart attack. And he's angry. He's pulling out his IV. He doesn't want to be there. This is a man who wants his independence. He's very proud. And one night when we're not there, they give him the same medication that he got in the psych yard. They give it to him again. And again, his pulse drops really low. And he almost codes. He almost dies. And they have to intubate him yet again. Okay. So, let's fast forward to the next 2 months. My father continues in the hospital where he gets stronger and stronger. They feed him. They try to give him some physical therapy for his heart. Then he gets transferred to a nursing home where he's still quite weak and frail. It's been 2 months since my parents have seen each other because my mom can't leave the house and he's not ready to go home. They've been married 61 years. They're each other's best friends. And I go over there and, I give him the cell phone and he talks to her by the cell phone. Finally, 3 days before he's supposed to be discharged from the nursing home, 3 days, my mother's bought new beds, and for the first time in 40 years, she bought 2 twin beds, high-end pillow top mattresses. She springs for these fabulous beds, right? Which I've been asking her to do for years. I'm trying to encourage her to live large. She finally gets it. She's clean. Her house is spotless. She doesn't have to clean it. But 3 days, finally, he's supposed to go home, March 6, 2008. Then something extraordinary happens. Would you like to guess what it is? A, my son tells me he no longer wants to play Xbox and is going to devote himself to algebra. B, I meet someone and have sex for the first time in 6 years. Or C, my mother drops dead. My mother dropped dead.